All right, continuing with our digital inking. We're about halfway through. Gosh, maybe not even that much. I gotta simplify my ideas. Nothing really new to show you here. I guess I could try to show you some new techniques because of what we know about compositing, right? So if I wanted to, I could use the vector shape tools. Like, for instance, I could use a black one, and then I could duplicate it, and then I could turn it white, right? And then I could transform it and shrink it to make that, and then I could rasterize them both. Or I could just merge them together, and then I could just delete the white, because we want just clean black lines. So there's all kinds of ways to get clean black line art. And maybe for this, which feels more mechanical, then I just duplicate that, Command J, whoops, duplicate it, Command J, I did it, then Option Command T, then I can flip it horizontally. That didn't do anything because it's already straight, and then I can kind of tilt it a little bit and use that for here as well, maybe make it a little bit bigger. And then I can erase that from my inked lines underneath. So anything you can do to help. Anything's allowed as long as you end up with clean black lines at the end. And they're all rasterized. So some students in the morning class, they were wondering, should I make like a new layer for everything I'm drawing? And to me, that's not productive. But if that's your way of working, you could do that. This is where it all comes down to kind of individual preferences and styles. And now I could duplicate those, and this is just becoming a whole new way of working. And then transform those circles, because the computer is really good at making perfect copies, right? And then I can just modify it a little bit with my transform options. And then I can duplicate that and bring that over. And I keep getting the new tab because I keep hitting Command T instead of Option Command T to get to my free transform within Photopea. Just because you don't need the command when you're using Photoshop. Yeah, I think I like that. So if you really don't want to have to try to draw perfect circles, there are other ways you can go about it. It will give you the same result. Feel like he's in Christmas pajamas. And so it's this really kind of non-threatening linear style, but he's got this really horrific kind of open jaw. So we'll see how it turns out. In very strange proportions. So what's fun about monsters, you can make them into anything you want. Now same thing for here. I can take one toe and then I can just duplicate it multiple times over, right? But every time we practice, we try inking, we get a little bit better. And maybe spot illustration is right up your alley. Or maybe it's very uncomfortable. Either way, you're learning a lot. trying it out. Now, in terms of marketing, where is this useful? Just like with logos, maybe you're not hoping to make your own illustrations for clients, but they're going to give you illustrations to use for campaigns, just like they'll give you photos, just like they'll give you logo assets and branding assets. And you have to know how to make the most of them. And when there's problems with them, you have to be able to fix them, or adjust them, or adapt them. The best options are the ones with the most versatility, right? So even if it's just that you're going to need to isolate the line art sometimes because you want to make a coloring sheet for this part of the business website where kids can download their own Christmas activities, whatever it might be, to support the brand, which is shotguns. I don't know. You'll know how to make that wonderful kids' shotgun calendar, something that they ask their mom and dad about every year. Sometimes I'll sketch something and I have to think, what was I thinking when I sketched that? What do I actually want to do? So remember, you don't need to be a slave to your sketch. And then when you're zoomed in a lot, you want to hit Command 0 every once in a while, kind of see the big picture, see what you're working towards. And this program has gotten so much better in the 5 years or so since it was introduced, especially with this smoothing tool. Because there's a lot of competing programs for this, like Clip Studio, like Paint Tool Sci, but this one's free, which is great, like Procreate. It doesn't have the tool after. That's one of the reasons we're going to turn it into a vector. So this is called live smoothing. It's smoothing it as you're drawing it. Because all raster programs can do is memorize pixels. So once we put the pixels down, they're ours to modify, but they don't plot the anchor points, which Illustrator or a vector program allows us to alter after the fact. But yeah, the smooth tool can be a nice addition here. So this is smoothing while we're painting or while we're inking. Okay, I think I've got the bottom done. So now we move up to here. I'm not sure why I decided to do both for my morning one and for this one creature riding on the back of another creature for this. That just seems like extra work. But the trouble I always have with these demos is showing you all the different kind of techniques. So not only are there different techniques for inking, there are going to be different techniques for coloring. And so I guess by having these two different characters, I can show you different ways of playing with coloring for them. But once you get your settings figured out, the inking can go fairly smoothly, even if you have a lot of detail. And remember, you can always modify with the lasso, as long as you don't have a feather turned on. Oh, and then this is something I did. Remember when I made all those circles? I made a lot of different layers for that, right? So now my inking is spread out across a lot of layers. So if you notice that, just make sure you didn't get anything flattened into them. And then you can just merge all of those together just by holding Shift and then going to Layer, Merge Layers, or Command E. Because you just want all your ink, eventually all to be in one layer. All right. And then you don't want to be zoomed in more than you need to be. That can really slow you down too, and get you too focused on details when they don't matter. So I have the little toddler hand with the fingers here. I'm using a fixed weight line. It's holding on to the spikes of the Gorgon. Ah. So something I learned pretty quickly when I had to do cartoons and inking, whether it was by hand or digitally, is that you really start to pay attention to the width of the line. A line isn't just dividing between one edge and another edge. It has a thickness on its own. And that thickness takes up space and it overlaps with stuff and it can be an issue. Sometimes it can be uncomfortable. So often when I'm inking a sketch, even if I'm pretty clear on my sketch, I have to decide, do I want to ink on the inside of the line or on the outside of the line? I just don't like how that looks. So if you're having trouble doing it all in one continuous line, you can break it into segments and then connect the segments like so. Especially if you have smoothing on, sometimes changing directions promptly, abruptly, doesn't go well. And then you can just clean up the segments with your lasso tool, because that looks a lot better. All right. Let's see. Just trying to get that arc. I'm going to use that rotate tool to try to help me get this arc. Sometimes it helps to rotate, because I keep biffing it at the end.
If you rotate, is there a command to send it back to like...
You just double click on it,
Okay.
and then it goes back.